Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew Beaudry. Welcome to Your Bread and Butter Podcast.
And I'm Ryan Cummings. Today's episode is Medicare Made Simple, what you need to know for open enrollment season.
Yeah, I just found out that my health insurance company would not cover me because I believe in reincarnation.
Really?
That's
it's wild.
because they say I have a pre-existing condition. We'll see you all in just a moment.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Private Financial Design LLC are not affiliated.
Bread and butter.
Welcome back, everybody. And today we're talking about a very important topic because we have Medicare on the docket. Going forward to the end of the year, you've got Medicare choices to make, and that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, there's a lot of decisions to be made around whether you're someone who's a new enrollee or you're someone who's already enrolled, which is going to be a lot of our focus here today. What are the things you should be thinking about, the decisions at the end of the year? Because the one thing you don't want to fall into the trap with Medicare is just kind of set it and forget it and think that your coverage is the same every single year or that it meets your needs every single year, because it may not.
Exactly right. And Medicare is different than private insurance. In fact, Medicare and a private insurance company walked into the bar together, and the bartender said to the Medicare, "What do you have?" He said, "I'll have the best of what you have to offer." Turned over to the private insurer and said, "What are you going to have?" The private insurance company said, "I'll have what he's going to have, but at twice the cost." But I think this is an important topic that people who are on Medicare don't understand. You do have choices. Going forward, you can change your plan if it's not working for you.
You can. I mean, traditionally, Medicare is a federally based health insurance that's for individuals 65 and older, or if you're younger than 65, if you qualify for things like disability coverage, you may also qualify for Medicare at a younger age. But for the most part, it's for those retirees, 65 and over. You don't necessarily have to be retired, but you do have to be over 65.
And one of the parts that people forget is that there are 4 parts of Medicare. There's the hospital insurance, which is Part A. And then there's Part B, which is your medical insurance, your doctors, your outpatient care. And then you've got Part C, which is the Medicare Advantage, the private plans that often bundle the A and B together with extras. And then there's Part D, prescription drug coverage. And we're going to break all that down for you today. Let's talk about some of those key concepts.
Yeah, the idea behind those different pieces is how they work in conjunction with one another. They go in tandem with different parts. So I always like to describe it as you have 2 options with Medicare. You can either go the more customizable route, with parts A and B, you do a Part D prescription plan, and then you get maybe Medigap coverage that kind of fills in the blanks. You have those 4 different pieces to the puzzle to customize things. The other option is you just pick a Part C plan. I like to describe that more as like the bundled choice, where everything, all your coverage is wrapped into one instead of having to pick these different pieces. And so they each have their pros and cons. We're not going to get too much into those today as we're focusing mostly on kind of the things to prepare for next year. But at the end of the day, Part C kind of acts a little more like your traditional health plans.
Yeah.
You got your dental, your vision, your inpatient, outpatient, your prescriptions all bundled together. Whereas the other options, you're picking one here, one there.
Kind of cafeteria style. I mean, it's a common mistake that people make that you get on Medicare and everything is for free. And then out in the private insurance world, you pay twice as amount of coverage and maybe get less coverage. Or Medicare doesn't really cover everything, and neither does private insurance either. And in 2026, Part B premiums are going to go up a little bit from $185 to over $200, $206 a month.
They are. And if you're, someone who's curious about those premiums, we got a little bit of a chart that kind of breaks out what some of those costs look like.
That's a good slide.
It's got a lot of information, and you can see if you're looking at this breakout here, it's all income based. So for example, these are 2026 numbers here. We're looking at, if you're a single filer, you make less than $109,000 in your MAGI, your modified adjusted gross income. your premium is just the base, is at roughly $206. That's the estimated premium for the base coverage of Part B for next year. So there's no surcharge, no additional IRMA surcharge is what they call it. But then you also may have to pay some for Part D as well, your prescription plan. So that's the tricky thing here is it's not just that, say, $200 or so per month. It could be more depending on which plans you're choosing. If it's a Part C plan, a Part D plan, a Medigap plan, those can all be extra. And there's a pretty large variety. So the reason those aren't on here is, well, there's lots of different choices and it would in no way fit on a chart like this.
Yeah.
But these are at least the base costs. And you can see depending as your income goes up, so does your premium. It goes up from 206 to 261 to 373, all the way up to a maximum of $635 a month if you're in that top tier tax bracket.
Sometimes people ask me, is there any real advantage, to being married, on a tax basis? Well, for health insurance, you can look at that
It's a
chart.
perfect example of it.
You can see that it's really a good example.
You get twice the bracket, so your income can be twice as high. Makes sense because there's two of you on your taxes instead of one, but your income can be twice as high before you see these Medicare surcharges.
I noticed this year with a lot of our clients, you've been doing a lot of the IRMA bracket planning. Now, I know we're not going to dive into that a lot, but for those of you out there that are in that married, filed, jointly, or you're in that single category where you're making a little bit more money, you're going to want to look at these charts to try to figure out, well, is there a way for me to make sure I don't hit that IRMA number, by maybe taking some other deductions through your retirement plan, or if you're in business, some other items. So we've been doing a lot of that, watching that, needing to plan, because these premiums, once they're set, how long do they stay there for? Does it change every year?
It does change every year. You do get a readjustment. They look back 2 years prior to recalculate what your new premiums are. So these for 2026, they're technically looking at your 2024 income.
I see.
So, but then they redo that in 2027. They'll look at your 2025 income. And in 2028, they'll look at your 2026 and so on and so forth.
So you're telling me that if in 2026, they look back at 2024 and, there's $1 million that came in, and now all of a sudden, though, you're in 2026 and you're only bringing in 100,000, you're still going to pay that higher number? Can you appeal
you'll have it readjusted each year.
You can get
they do readjust and look at it.
Yep. Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
So that is a nice feature. They'll relook at that income and because once you finish the year, they look at your taxes from the 2 years prior. They should, and that's why they go 2 years back, because ideally, even if you're on extension, you should have 2 years. There's always sometimes exceptions to that, but you should have 2 years prior tax returns completed and filed out by that point. So that's actually why they go 2 years back instead of just one, or even in your current year, because they can't possibly necessarily know your exact income in the current year until it's over. So they look 2 years prior to avoid, people who haven't.
And if you do have a drastic drop in income, you can always make that appeal.
Correct. That is the one exception too, is if you're someone whose your 2 years prior income is maybe not representative of your income today, well, that's where we actually were just dealing with a client with this recently. Yeah. They have forms where you can appeal that, and you can say, well, hey, even though my 2 years prior income was much higher, maybe you just retired, you were working 2 years ago, but you're not anymore and your income is much less, you can put an appeal form in and you can actually have them look at this year's income, an estimated income for this year, to readjust your premiums and not have to wait 2 years in the future to eventually have your premiums catch up with your current style of life.
That makes sense.
But that's what you can expect for this upcoming year for your Medicare premiums. Now, the open enrollment window that we were just talking about, kind of the big reason for today's session, is the October 15th through December 7th timeframe. So we're in it right now. This is the time to make any changes. If you want to go from Part A and B to Part C, or you want to go back from Part C to Part A and B, or pick a new Medigap plan, this is the time of year to do all that. But there is one additional window, which is for those people who are just on Part C and want to stay on Part C, but they just want to make a change. And that is in the beginning of the year, January 1st to March 31st. This is a separate window for people just to make changes within Part C. So that one's a little different.
So if you're in Medicare Advantage plan right now, the annual enrollment period currently, so those people can't make that change until January?
You actually can make any change now. Okay. Right now is like the overarching enrollment period.
But you could do it again in January.
But you could do it again if you're just a Part C participant and you want to just move from one Part C plan to another Part C plan. That's where the January to March an
Good.
extra enrollment window comes into play.
Excellent.
So those are the options for the timing of this year's enrollment.
I think, during your course of your year, it's good to keep note for those of you out there that do this as to what medications you're using. How often are you seeing the doctor? What specialists do you need? And if you're not happy with the providers that you have and you want to switch to a different plan and you want to go to different doctors, make sure those doctors are part of that overall plan.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing to look at, like we were alluding to at the beginning. You don't want to just leave this up to a set it and forget it mentality. Because what if your doctor leaves your practice and you have a new doctor within the same hospital? Usually they'll still accept the same insurance, but what if they don't? There's always exceptions to those rules. You want to make sure that is your plan going away? I dealt with some clients last year where they were actually losing their plan. So they had to make a change or else they would have gone with no coverage. So they would have been in that set it and forget it mentality, just thinking they were going to continue coverage into next year. Well, that wasn't going to be the case. And then some of the biggest ones is just with the ever rising cost of healthcare, your premiums can change, deductibles can change, all those different things. What's covered and what's not within your plan could possibly change. So even if your health hasn't changed, even if you're in the same scenario and your plan's been working well, it's still worth at least reviewing it, making sure you sit down, confirm, are there changes with your plan or are there not? And making sure that you don't get hit with a surprise bill or even if you have a unexpected illness. You want to make sure that your plan is covering everything that you need done and making sure that there's no surprises in the upcoming year.
And Medicare.gov actually has a really good plan finder tool that you can use to go on that website and find something that fits your needs for your health insurance.
Yeah, and speaking of unexpected illnesses, did you know what kind of illness the martial arts practitioner got?
No.
So you got the Kung Flu. So I want to make sure Medicare covers that.
Yeah, Kung Flu. You got to make sure you have that. Yeah. So do you know what it's called when you're still on your mother's insurance policy?
I don't.
Yo Mama Care. Yeah, there we go. Common pitfalls and strategies to look at here are very important. Very, very important. You want to make sure you look at your coverage every single year. And so those of you who are on Medicare Advantage plans, in October, you should have gotten a booklet already by your current insurer letting you know about the changes that are coming ahead. And you don't want to just assume that everything stayed the same, so you toss it in the recycling bin. No, you don't want to let it sit on the counter. You don't want to let it sit in the trash. You want to read it. You want to make sure your doctor's still covered in there. And you want to look at that prescription cover to see what items might have changed. And sometimes you might be surprised. They cover more things this year than they did last year.
Right.
So check to see if your providers and medication are still covered before you renew. And you might want to consider working with a Medicare specialist for personalized guidance.
Absolutely. They sometimes have a little more knowledge. They're working directly with the plans. If you have a financial advisor that specializes in this, maybe they can help you too. But
that would be you.
Well, that would be, yes. Would be one of those advisors. But if you don't have an advisor and you want to work with a Medicare specialist, they can have a wealth of knowledge. The one conflict of interest that some Medicare specialists can have is sometimes they do work with specific networks.
Right,
You may work with a Medicare specialist who maybe only deals with Blue Cross Blue Shield plans. And they're going to obviously favor those because that's how they make their living.
Yeah.
But they can still, at the end of the day, help you pick the best plan and give you, share with you their wealth of knowledge. But to give you a couple examples of why, some of those points you mentioned are key. Again, real life examples, things we've had our clients go through, family members, et cetera. The prescription side of things, like you were mentioning.
Yeah.
You could have prescription lists within a same plan you've been using change, where 1 year a prescription is covered. I had a client who has diabetes medication, and their medication was covered 1 year and not the next. Wow. They did not switch plans. They did not change providers or change networks or anything like that. It was just simply they reclassified the medication, and it was expensive. We're talking thousands of dollars here over the course of the year of a difference of how much they were going to have to pay. And if we didn't catch that, they could have been out a couple $1,000s without ever knowing it.
This brings up a broader point that health insurance isn't just about health insurance. I mean, it is about the quality of your life, quality of your care, but it is a financial planning need. It is something that your choice can impact your retirement budget. It could diminish or enhance your retirement plan. And you want to avoid unexpected healthcare costs through your supplemental plans by using Medigap if in case you just don't feel comfortable with everything you have for coverage. And if you can afford it, Medigap works very well. And you coordinate your Medicare with your HSAs, health savings accounts, your employer's current coverage if you're still working after 65, or even your retiree health benefits. So health expenses can be one of the biggest costs in retirement. So planning does matter.
It does. I mean, I think last I looked up the statistic, I believe it actually was the largest cost in retirement. And I believe for a married couple over their retirement picture, last I looked the statistic up, it was like in the realm of $350,000 for Medicare coverage between the ages of 65 to like 85 or something like that. It was a pretty outstanding cost. And if you're not managing these things efficiently in your retirement, it could be even more.
And that number, by the way, does not include long-term care nursing costs.
Correct. Yeah, this is just health coverage.
That's a totally other subject. Sorry.
Exactly.
But not to overwhelm you. But 20 years, that's a pretty reasonable amount of time. But
it is. But a large cost.
A lot of money.
Right. A large cost.
$17,000 a year or so. That's a lot of money. So
yes. So the kind of the takeaways from today, even though we didn't get too much into the details of Medicare, is be prepared for this open enrollment season. It's happening now. For those of you on Part C, you've got that other window coming up at the beginning of the year. But for anyone right now, you have until that December 7th deadline to make any changes, review your coverages, and make sure, especially if you're on a Part C plan, make sure your networks haven't changed.
Right.
Because while original Medicare, A, B, D, Medigap plans, those are pretty widely accepted across the country. Your Part C plans are very network specific. The Blue Crosses, Blue Shields, the Aetnas, the Cignas, and up here in the Northeast, we have some smaller ones like Tufts or Harvard Pilgrim.
Health New England.
Yeah, Health New England. They may not be accepted worldwide. And that's something too, whereas if your retirement plans change, you're someone who, we see it all the time, especially up here in New England, you no longer just live in one place in the country anymore. You want to maybe winters down in Florida and summers up north.
Or travel internationally. You want to make sure you have some international coverage there.
Right.
And also, too, if you have questions about that, you can contact us through our website. And, you watch this, just give us some feedback about it. We just want to make sure that people out there understand that this is a planning dynamic. There's HMOs and there's PPOs that are inside of all of that. It's way technical for just a short, brief episode, but we want to inspire you to get to your financial advising people and ask the questions.
Yes. So I think at the end of the day is review your plans, make sure you're covered, and make sure you're prepared for the upcoming year.
And it doesn't have to be confusing. Just make sure you review, you compare, and you choose everything with confidence. We're really glad that you stepped in here today and watched us and listened to us. And again, any feedback, get back to us. And remember, live today for the tomorrow that's in your heart.
Because you'll never have more time to plan for tomorrow than you do today.
Thank you for watching.
Bread and butter.